La Familia's win over the Ville was nothing short of incredible. What did we learn from this game, and just how important could that post-game brawl be to this rivalry's future?
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be recapping La Familia's win over the Ville in Louisville. 70-61 was the final score. Just an absolutely incredible game. Going to take you through what happened, going to break down the positives, the negatives, look ahead to Carmen's crew, which will be the matchup in the Final Four of the TBT. And then we're going to talk for a little bit about just how important that post-game brawl that occurred between both teams could end up actually being for this rivalry. Thank you so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone that we are free and available on all platforms. And if you are watching on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. And if you are listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can make every moment more, and as playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to, but FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long, so you can visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. 70-61 was the final score. Kentucky basketball, closer towards the end of the game, was not really able to get anything done on offense. I believe they went 9 straight possessions during the Elam ending without scoring a point. Kareem Cantor missed 2 free throws in that 9th possession, if I am not mistaken, but thankfully, Kentucky basketball was able to find a way to get it done at the end of the game, scoring 70 points. The target score was 70, and the Wildcats took a while to get there, but they did eventually make it. The first thing that I want to point out here is that this group of former Kentucky players knows how to play defense. This is unlike what we got to see from Coach Cal and the Wildcats this past season, and it's honestly a breath of fresh air to see former Kentucky players step out onto a court and know how to actually prevent the opposing team from scoring. Again, it was a massive struggle, and I was just really pleased to see players like Willie Cauley-Stein step out and make some huge plays at the rim towards the end of the game. Eric Bledsoe was solid on the defensive end of the floor. Cauley-Stein actually led the team in steals with 4. There were 4 other players that got 1 apiece. Andrew Harrison, Nate Sestina, Bledsoe, and then Aaron Harrison off of the bench. Man, oh man, oh man. Andrew Harrison with some really clutch shots towards the end of the game. Only 3 of 9 from the floor overall, but 2 really important threes, including the go-ahead 3-point shot. He finished with 11 points, 1 steal, 7 assists, 2 rebounds in this game. I would say that Nate Sestina, Willie Cauley-Stein, and then Andrew Harrison were the 3 most important players in this game, actually top 3 scorers in this contest. But man, the defense from Kentucky statistically really solid. To go back to that for a second, we talked about it in the preview episode on Friday. We broke down the fact that, look, Kentucky from an efficiency standpoint is significantly better than everybody in the field. Collectively, they're top 5 in both offensive and defensive efficiency in this tournament thus far. They really get it done on both ends of the floor, and opponents are shooting, I believe at the time it was like 34% from the floor. Louisville ended up shooting worse than that. They shot 31%, 18 of 21 from the floor, 4 of 21 from beyond the arc, and the only thing that kept these cards in the game was the foul line. The fact that they were able to send Russ Smith, Montrezl Harrell, Chino Onuaku, I believe is how you pronounce his name. I was saying it fluently before the start of the show, but you know what? By the way, just a fun little fact for you guys. I've been without internet for the past almost 4 hours now, so when will this get uploaded? I have absolutely no idea, but we are getting you a recap to end the day here on Monday. But yeah, Louisville was not able to really get things going outside of what they were working with at the charity stripe. 21 of 28 from the free throw line. Kentucky just 6 for 11, only 11 free throw attempts as compared to Louisville's 28. And frankly, I think that, whether Kentucky had won or lost this game, I would have come out of it saying just how incredibly poor the officiating was, especially in that second half. Even when things were going well for Kentucky, there were just so many different things that the officials missed from a physicality standpoint. They really did play one-sided in this game. I think part of that was the fact that it was a home crowd. Louisville was the beneficiary of a number of different foul calls that, frankly, either should not have happened, or if those fouls were going to be called on Kentucky, you at least have to make it as consistent on the other end of the floor. Kentucky getting bounced around inside the paint. No fouls called essentially all game, but Louisville with Montrezl Harrell and Russ Smith were essentially able to take it to the hole whenever they wanted to, then try and get a foul, and usually they were successful. There was one point in the second half where Nate Sestina was posting up a Louisville player, and it was getting very physical, and both players fell to the ground, and the whistle was blown, and you would have thought either an offensive foul or a foul on the Louisville player would have been made. Nope, travel. It was called a travel, and even the announcers were stunned at the fact that no fouls were called at that point or at various parts throughout the game. That's the only reason this game was close. And I know that a lot of people are going to make different points saying, well, you can't blame officiating for this and that and everything, but 28 free throw attempts compared to Kentucky's 11. Russ Smith going 11 of 12 in this TBT from the charity stripe. He got 11 of his 22 points from there. Otherwise, he was 5 of 16 from the floor and a pathetic 1 of 7 from beyond the arc. It was the free throw line. If you take away Russ Smith's points at the free throw line, Kentucky blows this team out. It's over after their run in the third quarter. But what can you do? Hopefully, Kentucky's able to get a little bit more favor when it comes to the whistle here whenever they go and face off against Carmen's Crew. The 3-seed Ohio State alumni won this tournament back in 2019. That's my major takeaway. Kentucky played great defense. They had 3 players stand out, and then they had Louisville get to the foul line. That's the only thing that made this truly competitive. Let's continue to break down what happened here and why we think guys like Nate Sestina and Willie Cauley-Stein and Andrew Harrison were really, really big. Before we dive into that, though, I do want to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. And I love sports, and college football is getting super, super close. I never want them to stop. We get fewer games this time of year, though, and the sports aren't quite sportsing like we want them to just yet. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going literally whenever I want, and all I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime that I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. That is FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, continuing along here on the Monday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Again, I really appreciate you guys checking out the show today. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would greatly appreciate it if you did so. If you have any comments, thoughts, questions about this matchup against the Ville, again, La Familia victorious 70-61 was the final score after the Elam ending. You can leave all of that in the YouTube comments below. At Locked On UK is where you can find me on Twitter if you want to give your thoughts there. All right, we're continuing to break down this victory from the Cats, advancing to the Final Four. Tyler Ulis, the head coach, going to be very, very special on Coach Cal's staff at Arkansas. You could see it every time they cut over during a timeout. They would let us tune in, hear what Ulis was cooking up, hear how he was coaching his team. Love what Ulis is doing at this stage in his career, and I would love to see him back in Kentucky blue and white as a coach, whether that be an assistant or maybe even a head coach in the sometime in the distant future. I think that would be absolutely amazing. So we talked about the defense. We talked about the free throw shooting. Let's talk for a little bit here about the man of the day, Nate Sestina. Sestina was absolutely incredible from beyond the arc in this contest. He had 22 points. He shot 6 of 14 from 3. He hit 5 3-pointers in that third quarter, a third quarter that Kentucky dominated, 26 points to Louisville's 11, and Kentucky was able to utilize that big quarter and Sestina to kind of move along here with a very subpar fourth quarter showing, I may add. But Sestina, man, in those 42 minutes, was he incredibly important to what Kentucky basketball was trying to do, especially with his three-point shooting. And I really do hope that he, alongside Kellen Grady, are able to find that three-point shooting rhythm. Kellen Grady in this game, 21 minutes, only statistics he recorded was a rebound, an assist, and a foul. He went 0 of 4 from beyond the arc, 0 of 4 from the floor in total. And he has just simply not been able to find his shot in this TBT at all, which is a really, really big shame, especially considering how special he was for that one season after transferring in from Davidson. You would think that he would play a bigger role on this stage here, but again, just not able to hit. Was shooting 30% coming into this game, now even worse, and that's kind of what he brings to the table is three-point shooting. Sestina, however, able to kind of keep things afloat there. Again, 5 3-pointers, just caught fire in that third quarter. He had 8 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 4 personal fouls, got close to fouling out, and only 1 turnover. Really good stuff in 42 minutes. Played the most out of any player on La Familia's roster. Again, Andrew Harrison, like I mentioned, 7 assists, 11 points. And Willie Cauley-Stein, he was 8 of 9 from the floor, 3 of 3 from beyond the arc. Talk about the three-point shooting from these cats. So we noted coming into this game that Louisville could not shoot worth a rip, right? They could not shoot from beyond the arc. They could not shoot from inside the arc very efficiently. They were 4 of 21 in this game from three-point land. And in Kentucky, 12 of 34, 35.3% from 3. Very solid numbers, but Willie Cauley-Stein, man, 3 of 3, only hit 6 3-pointers in his NBA career, and I think he's got 6 already in this tournament. And as the broadcaster said, with age comes a better outside shot, which I think is very, very entertaining there. But Willie Cauley-Stein, to go along with those 20 points and that high efficiency, 9 rebounds, 4 steals, 1 assist, 1 block, no turnovers. Really, really great stuff there from Cauley-Stein. It's really good to see him and Nate Sestina kind of balling out, kind of carrying this team right now as they get closer and closer to facing off against Carmen's crew. All right, I want to talk here for a little bit about the importance of that brawl that happened towards the end of the game. In case you didn't see it, we'll break it down here for you. Before I get into it, just want to remind you guys, if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, it would be super awesome if you did. Thank you so much to everyone who has already subscribed to the show. Want to remind you guys, if you have not checked out the Locked On Kentucky Discord, it is linked on my Twitter at @LanceDawe_. If you want to go find it there, it is free. It's a fun place for everybody to talk about what's going on with Kentucky basketball. Kentucky football fall camp's about to start. All things going on with Big Blue Nation. You can find it over there, again, at @LanceDawe_ on Twitter if you want to join the Discord. All right, wrapping up the Monday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Again, Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. I appreciate you guys hanging out as we break this down here today. La Familia victorious over the Ville, 70-61. And there were tensions throughout the game. A Harrison twin got teed up with a Louisville player, Russ Smith, if I'm not mistaken. There was a lot of jawing going back and forth. Kentucky victorious over Little Brother yet again, and of course, if I'm Louisville, I'd be a little upset as well, continuing to get whipped in this rivalry as a whole, and they got whipped in this game, quite frankly. Had it not been for the officials, this probably would have been a 20-point win. Emotions ran high towards the end of the game. If you decided to turn off Fox or wherever you were tuned in watching this before people shook hands and the game was officially over, You got to see a brawl break out towards the end, and it was kind of confusing initially as to why it happened, but reports coming out on social media that a brawl broke out on the floor after a Cardinal player spit on Nate Sestina. And Sestina was asked about it post-game, and he said this. He said, quote, "Emotions ran high. That's what this game does to people. It had been great chatter the whole game, nothing crazy, nothing personal." And then it got personal, obviously. L's down versus L's up. That's what this game is. Onaku was just like, "Don't do L's down here." And I was just like, all right, L's down always. And then he walked away and stepped at me or whatever. I backwards turned, and then he spit in my face. I'm going to leave it at that. Nothing crazy, spit at me. That's on him. I believe that he actually said following that he really did appreciate getting this victory, that it meant a lot to be able to get a win, especially with emotions running high towards the end of the game. But it got very close to being just an all-out brawl between a number of players on both teams behind one of the goals there after the end of the game. And there were some people online saying it would be extremely, out of character and just not okay for the Wildcats and the Cards to kind of break into a rivalry here as things in. It's a TBT game. It's not that deep, and I don't condone the fighting. I don't condone people getting hurt. I don't condone throwing fists. I don't condone spitting on people. But what I do condone is having passion for your program and your team. And I don't want to see anybody get hurt. I don't want to see that happen again. I don't want to see things get started. What I do want to see this winter is I want to see a packed out Rupp Arena that cares about this game. I want to see Pat Kelsey bring in a competent Louisville team that makes this contest competitive, extremely competitive. I want to see not a fight physically. I don't want to see people throwing punches. I want to see a fight on that court. I want to see this game be fun again. There has been several years in a row here where the game didn't really feel like there was a whole lot important to it, especially with Louisville being so bad. And I know that we're kind of trashing Louisville here, but that's just been the reality. Kenny Payne went over, and the program completely sunk into the ground. It was absolutely terrible what was going on in Louisville. They sucked. There's no other way to put it. They stunk. But now with Kelsey and a cast of transfer portal players that look really, really good on paper. I will be honest, they look good on paper, as does Mark Pope's squad. My hope is that they bring a little life back into this again, that we come out of this game in the winter. Hopefully Kentucky wins. I would expect them to win. I want them to win. But regardless of the outcome, saying that's what college basketball needs. You need more of that. Duke and UNC, regardless of whether or not Duke or the Tar Heels or the Blue Devils are having a bad season, which they've had a couple recently, you have been able to see at either venue just an insane atmosphere, just incredible. This is what the SEC beats their chest in when it comes to college football, right? Atmosphere is better than anybody, culture better than anybody, talent off the charts relative to almost every single program out there. They don't lead the way in basketball right now with that. Now, they certainly have a ton of talent. They have so much talent in this league. The coaches, top half of the league plus, incredible. Top of the line, really, really solid coaching efforts. You got to see things like this. The rivalry against Louisville kind of rekindle itself, right? Every single time I've gone on the show here, when I've done a Louisville recap, and we've been doing this show for almost 3 years now, started with the 2021 season. We're in 2024. Every time I've done a Louisville game, it's not felt bigger than an SEC game against a team like Auburn, Tennessee, Arkansas, Florida. I think that is a great program to compare this to. The game against Louisville should be more important and have more emphasis put on it coming into it and exiting it than a game against Florida, a game against a decent Missouri squad, a game against South Carolina. This should matter more. It should feel like it matters more. And there are definitely definitely fans who are going to hear this, and pretty much every single fan may sit here and listen and say, we still care. We do care. We want to beat Louisville every single year. You get to see that in football as well. There's tons of passion there. But I want to see, I'm not sitting here saying I want Louisville to be good. I want them to be good enough to make it worth watching, frankly. I want this to be competitive. I want it to be fun again. I don't feel like that's a bad thing to want. I don't feel like it's a bad thing to want to watch entertaining basketball against one of your closest rivals. I think it's fair. And frankly, we may get that this year. Who knows? Kentucky could lose, and they could be heading into Louisville next year, and that could be an extremely hostile environment. And I think that maybe I'm dwelling on this maybe a little bit more than I should because of the fact that this was in Louisville tonight. Over 13,000 people attended this game. You couldn't get 2K in the building last year if you paid them to watch Louisville basketball. It's been like that for almost 3 years now. That was incredible. It was a fun atmosphere. It was worth watching. I loved this game. I love the rivalry, and I want to see it kind of bring that fire back. Again, I don't want to see anybody get hurt. I don't want to see players throwing punches or spitting at each other's faces. That's not okay. But I do want to see it look like it matters. I want to see things like the Tyler Eulis game from a few years ago. I want to see Willie Cauley-Stein ripping Montrezl Harrell and throwing down a dunk, which we kind of got to see some of that tonight. I want to see it look like both of these teams, for the most part, hate each other, and they want to do everything they can to get a win. I'm looking forward to that this winter. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at LanceDawe_, and you can follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.